So it's Wednesday, February 15th, 2023, and today we're talking with Lieutenant Colonel Ben Mitchell of the United States Air Force, retired. Welcome, Ben. Thank you for talking with us today. I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you. Same here.
So let's start off a little bit about Old Bridge. What was it like for you when you lived in Old Bridge and you attended school there?
It was memorable. You know, I made a lot of friends. Did well in school. Um, as a matter of fact, I never even missed a day except when we had our official cutout day in senior year.
Where'd you go for that day?
Lakewood.
I went to Palisades Park with a group of guys.
Okay. I went down to the shore with Marty Coe.
Oh,
and
okay.
A couple of others.
When you were in school there, did you have a job after school?
Well, you know, early on, I had a paper route, and my senior year, I had a job doing some warehouse work. I can't even remember who it was.
Did you? So I guess let's get on to some of your memories growing up in Old Bridge. Is there anything special that you remember? Anything that first of all, I guess, how long did you live in Old Bridge?
We moved there in early 1964, and I left when I joined the military in 1970, a year after we graduated.
Oh, really? Did you always want to join the military, or is that something that you just decided after school?
Oh, no, I wanted to be in the Air Force for as long as I could remember. Was always around airplanes. My dad flew commercially, and just kind of rubbed off on me.
Huh. And all that time, I never knew that about you.
Yeah. Anything you want to know about me, you can ask Victor Costello, but take it with a word of advice.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook with you and Victor, so I see what he's doing all the time.
Yeah.
He's a very busy guy.
Yeah, well, he and I were friends from, and we were in the same class from fourth grade to, of course, middle school, which was actually at the high school. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we were in high school together, but in different classes.
Which grammar school did you go to? Where did you live?
PS20.
In Old Bridge.
Huh?
In Old Bridge.
We were in Sarahwood South.
Sarahwood South.
Yeah. And we were at PS20, John Glenn.
Oh, okay.
And we were there from, 4th through 6th, but they didn't have a middle school back then. So middle school was spent at the high school.
And did you walk to the school? A lot of people from Sarahwood South did.
Well, from PS20, grammar school, yes, I lived right up the hill from it. But as far as going to the high school, no, we took bus.
Okay. So you wanted to join the military all along, and you joined in 1970, I think you just said?
Yeah.
And you also went to college. Was that through the military?
No, well, I went to college. My mistake, I went to Middlesex County. And since I was local, I ran around, had fun, a little drinking here, a little drinking there, and everything else. And my second semester, my grades weren't so great. So that's when basically I went and enlisted.
Okay, and what was your job when you in the military? I mean, in the Air Force?
Well, when I first went in, from 1970 to 1974. When I was on active duty, I was munitions maintenance. Basically, I built bombs, and
Wow.
I got out, went in the reserves, and out in the reserves from 74 to 83. I was a disaster preparedness technician, which was basically a military version of emergency management. I went back to school and got my degree and got my commission, and I became a civil engineering officer, and that's what I was from 1984 until I retired in 2010.
Oh, wow. So, what does a civil engineering officer do in the Air Force?
Well, they're responsible for all the facilities, any construction that's done on base or in housing. My primary thing was determining bed down requirements for new missions or change of missions, determining what the facility requirements would be, what the cost would be.
Did that require you going to a lot of places, a lot of bases and stuff?
Oh yes.
Well, like where? Where did you? Where were you sent?
Oh Lord, Ramstein, Germany, Spangdahlem, Germany, Incirlik, Turkey, Marone, Spain, about half a dozen bases in the United Kingdom, and multiple places here in the United States.
And did the training that they gave you here, uh, did that serve your needs when you went to those places, or did you find it each place was different, that you had to learn something in each place you went?
No, of course, my degree was actually in mechanical engineering, but what I learned in high school, I applied to almost everything. Um, uh, some graphics design, some computer work, you name it. And actually, I was out of my educated career field, being a civil engineer, when I was actually a mechanical engineer
Hmm.
uh, by degree.
Wow. Um, so, was there anything that the Air Force didn't prepare you for that you ran into when you were in service? Hey,
Some of the language and culture barriers were quite a bit different here, there, and yonder, especially in Turkey and some of the Far East countries. But I was pretty well prepared when I went in. And of course, I continued education in the military, a couple of what they call tech schools, which are specialized technical schools, usually short. Um, then some professional development courses like Air Command and Staff and Air War College, which are basically like a master's degree in military.
did you um, did you serve during any war or anything like that?
Vietnam, uh, and all the Middle East, I was involved in some way, shape, or form. Whether it was being in theater, which I was in Vietnam, or being stateside and filling mission needs overseas in Iraqi freedom, Afghanistan. So I was involved in just about everything between 74 to 2010.
Wow. Are there any incidents or anything that you can tell us about that come to mind?
No, everything was taken, don't know how to really phrase it. Everything was basically normal as far as what you are in the military. I'd say, like when we were at Utapao, Thailand, every now and then working in the bomb storage facility, there was some times that we get pot shots taken at us. And as it turned out, it was a North Vietnamese sympathizer sitting out there with a gun that was probably about 40 years old, shooting into the bomb dump, which
Oh,
is
wow.
not a good place to have bullets flying. But, like I said, I was at Langley Air Force Base when Katrina hit the Gulf Coast, and I was in charge of getting military civil engineers over to where the damage was. And not even a year later, I wound up at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, a year after Katrina. And I was there for a year with follow up on that. Our primary function then, the Army was utilizing Air Force to fill Army billets because they didn't have enough people. So they spun up a brand new unit, and I was the deputy commander of that unit as a lieutenant colonel. I had 106, he was the commander, and we were in charge of overseeing the Army training of all the Air Force personnel being deployed in their billets.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It was really something, and some things had come out where the Secretary of the Air Force was getting regular updates. It's like I have told my wife many times, and she tells other people that I have actually briefed 4-star generals, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, the Assistant Secretary of Defense. So,
Wow, that's so. You were in charge of a whole unit. Was it the same unit throughout your career, or that they move along with you, or were you reassigned?
Actually, there after I got off active duty and got my commission, they used me to backfill individuals who were deployed where that position was deemed critical, where they couldn't go without that person for 6 months. They would move me to that base for 6 months to fill their position. And from 2003 until 2010, I bounced all over the place. And the longest time I spent anywhere was 2 years.
Wow, that must have been difficult adjusting back to civilian life after all that, moving around and being in charge. And now you're at home and your wife is in charge, right?
Absolutely. Well, see, the thing is, no matter what I got promoted to, she was always one grade higher. So she's always been in charge.
Oh, that's nice. Do you keep in touch with any of the people that you served with, or do you belong to any local veterans groups?
Well, I belong to the Alabama Veterans Association, but I do keep in touch with some of the folks I've been stationed with. That 06 that was over me when I was in Biloxi, he actually lives in Texas. I keep in touch with him and his wife. The person I backfilled at Whiteman, she wound up a 1-star general, and I keep in touch with her and her husband and her kids. But yeah, the thing is, once you get out, unless you stay near a base or whatever, you kind of lose touch. And that's the reason I love Facebook, because that's the only way I keep track of everybody.
So, are there any other things that you can think of that any particular, I guess, funny incidents or anything that you remember while serving?
Lord, too many to remember, but I guess one really good one. of course, when I was over in Utapao, Thailand, we were building bombs, and the only time we were working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. And the only time that you actually got a break is when there was a ceasefire and they would stop flying. Well, I used to go to the NCO club whenever they had, thing. And of course, you meet lots of folks because everybody's celebrating. It's a ceasefire. Hopefully, this is the last one. It's all over. Then, after a couple of days, they'd leave the table and we'd start right back up. So you meet a lot of folks. Well, I get to Dobbins outside of Atlanta in Marietta, Georgia, and that's where I started my reserve time. And I had a firefighter and civil engineers. He asked me, he goes, "Weren't you at Utapao, Thailand?" I said, "Yeah." And he introduced himself, and it was one of my drinking buddies at the club, and I didn't even recognize him. But crossing paths with folks that you haven't seen in several years, that's always a highlight. But like I said, I spent basically 40 years in the Air Force from 1970 to 2010. Some of that, of course, was on reserve duty, but I got called back to active duty in 2003 and spent the next 7 years on active.
Wow. So how do you just adjust back to civilian life after all of that time? Must be quite an abrupt change.
Retirement's an abrupt change. And and my wife would tell everybody I retired from the Air Force in 2010 and I couldn't stay still. So I wound up going to work at the Kia manufacturing plant in West Point, Georgia for the next 4 years. And then I moved over here to Alabama to get involved with a ministry called the Ramp. And we've been here ever since.
So do you keep busy with other things? Do you have hobbies or something that you're involved in?
We keep busy with the ministry. Basically, they have a school called the Ramp School of Ministry, where they have about 200 older teenagers, early 20s, and occasionally you get somebody older in there. And we're involved with them. We go to morning prayer with them from 8 to 9 every morning. We go to special functions. We go to their camps with them. So actually, we have really been busy since retirement, if you want to call it that.
So it's not really retired.
No, not by any stretch.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to see that you keep busy. And I know you keep busy with the folks from Old Bridge, from Madison Township.
We keep track of quite a few. Of course, Victor and I are real close, and we always have been. We basically grew up together. And Facebook, without it, I probably wouldn't know anybody.
Uh-huh. So is there anything else that we haven't covered, that either about Old Bridge or about the military?
About the only other thing is retirement is not a leisure time.
Well, before we go, I have one more question for you. Do you still play the trumpet?
Lord, no. Sam, I've got false teeth.
I tried picking it up probably 10 or 12 years after we were out of school, and I couldn't get my lip back. I could do everything else. I mean, but I just couldn't get the lip back.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I still have my trumpet sitting up in storage.
Yeah, me too. Probably never look at it again, but it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I guess if there's nothing else that you can think of or I can think of, maybe we should close this out, because I know Jeff has to run. But before we go, Ben, I really want to thank you for sharing your time with us and your memories with us today. And I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you, Sam. It was my honor to serve this country.